You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. When the federal government brought RICO charges against R. Kelly, it set a very dangerous precedent. One that could criminalize standard industry practices within the world of music and entertainment. By misapplying the RICO statute, which was originally intended to combat organized crime syndicates, the prosecution attempted to paint ordinary business operations and commonplace actions taken by artists and their management teams as criminal acts conducted in furtherance of a criminal enterprise. In doing so, they blurred the line between criminal conspiracy and the everyday logistics of an international recording artist. Let us be clear. Touring artists, especially those at the level of R. Kelly, do not operate in a vacuum. They do not move through the world alone. They travel with a team, and that team is made up of bodyguards, personal assistants, managers, stylists, travel coordinators and production staff. This is not an anomaly or an aberration. In fact, this is the norm. These individuals have designated roles, responsibilities and tasks to perform. And their purpose is largely to ensure that the artist can focus on his creative and performance obligations while the team handles the details. Now, let's examine how the government mischaracterized these individuals in R. Kelly's case. Under the RICO statute, the government must demonstrate the existence of an enterprise engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity. They must show that individuals within this so-called enterprise were united by a common purpose, a shared criminal intent, and that they acted in coordination to further that unlawful objective. But in R. Kelly's case, the government failed to do that. Instead, they took routine logistical arrangements and retroactively labeled them as components of a criminal operation. Take for instance the act of booking travel. For any touring artist, this is a necessity. Someone has to coordinate flights, hotels, ground transportation and itineraries. The artist's team is typically responsible for these arrangements. It is standard practice for the artist to provide a list of personnel such as dancers, musicians, security and any assistants who need to travel with him. Those names are passed along to travel coordinators who book the necessary tickets. This is not suspicious and this is not criminal. For a touring celebrity artist, this is business as usual. Yet in R. Kelly's trial, the prosecution twisted these very actions into something nefarious. They suggested that by booking travel for certain individuals, R. Kelly's team was facilitating a criminal enterprise. They argued that the mere act of handling logistics for his entourage somehow indicated a coordinated and unlawful operation. Well, this is not how RICO works. To sustain a RICO charge against a defendant, there must be a deliberate and provable link between the actions of the alleged members and the overarching criminal goal. In this case, there was no such link. There was no evidence presented that R. Kelly's assistants, drivers, or handlers shared a criminal purpose. There was no proof that they acted with malicious intent. And there was no indication that they were part of a unified scheme to commit federal crimes. Their actions, booking hotels, organizing transportation, managing performances and more were all consistent with the legal duties they were hired to perform. The prosecution attempted to transform ordinary employees into co-conspirators, not because they had done anything criminal but because they were in proximity to the artist. This kind of logic is not only flawed but is also dangerous. If allowed to stand, it opens the door for any celebrity, artist or public figure to be targeted under RICO simply because they have a staff doing their normal work. The government's case was built not on a foundation of coordinated criminal activity, but on a pile of inferences and implications, none of which met the standard required by RICO. Booking a flight with no criminal intent is not evidence of trafficking. Scheduling a concert tour is not racketeering. Carrying a bag does not equal conspiracy. Moreover, none of the staff members involved in these routine tasks were charged with crimes. None were proven to have had knowledge of, or intent to participate in any unlawful activity. So how can their actions be used to establish a criminal enterprise? The answer is simple: they can't. At least not under the law as it was originally written and intended. The government's decision to pursue RICO charges in this manner reflects an alarming overreach. RICO was designed to dismantle organized crime networks and not to prosecute musicians and their employees for doing their jobs. The theory that R. Kelly led a criminal enterprise simply because he had a team supporting his music career distorts the very nature of what RICO was created for. In any other context, this kind of reasoning would be laughed out of court. Imagine accusing a CEO of leading a criminal enterprise because his executive assistant booked flights for him and the people he traveled with. Or imagine charging a tour manager with racketeering because they arranged lodging for an artist's crew when on tour. It would be absurd, and rightly so. Yet in this case that is precisely what happened. The broader implication is chilling. If routine business operations can be weaponized as evidence of a criminal conspiracy, then no artist, entrepreneur or public figure is safe. The logistics of professional life, particularly in high-profile industries, often require a support system. To criminalize that support system is to criminalize the infrastructure of success itself. Let's go even deeper. There is a fundamental misunderstanding or misrepresentation at play here about how touring and celebrity life works. When an artist like R. Kelly is preparing for a performance, a tour or an international event, there is an enormous amount of planning involved. That planning falls on a team of people who work behind the scenes to ensure that everything runs smoothly. These individuals don't operate independently or secretly. Their actions are often subject to contracts, invoices and communication logs. They act within the bounds of their professional responsibilities, which are clearly delineated. None of this suggests covert or illegal conduct. On the other hand, it suggests professionalism. In court, however, the government sought to conflate these roles with criminal facilitation. Unless there is direct evidence that the assistant knew the travels were part of a criminal plan and acted with that knowledge, it does not meet the threshold for RICO participation. Remember, the standard for proving a RICO enterprise is not based on speculation. It is rather based on evidence. And the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the enterprise existed, that it engaged in racketeering activity, and that individuals knowingly participated in it with shared criminal intent. None of those burdens were properly met in this case. What we're seeing here is a misuse of federal power to manufacture guilt where there is none. The RICO charges were not supported by the facts. They were not supported by the law. They were not supported by credible corroborated testimony. Instead, they relied on the persuasive power of implication. On the idea that proximity equals participation and that business equals conspiracy, which is so absurd. This is not justice. In fact, this is simply a distortion of justice. In a properly functioning legal system, facts do matter, intent matters, and evidence also matters. And yet in the case against R. Kelly, those elements were brushed aside in favor of a sweeping narrative that could not hold up under scrutiny. To those familiar with the inner workings of the music industry, this entire approach is as baffling as it is unjust. The notion that hiring assistants, traveling with security, or organizing appearances constitutes a criminal enterprise is unfounded. If this logic was applied broadly, nearly every successful touring artist could be ensnared in RICO allegations simply for doing what is required of their profession. And let's not forget, there was no proven coordination among the members of R. Kelly's staff to carry out illegal acts. There were no intercepted communications, no financial transactions, no confessions, and no internal documents showing a criminal plan. The evidence simply wasn't there. The appeal court in New York now has an opportunity to correct this overreach and to recognize that the government's theory was legally unsound, and that the charges should be dismissed without prejudice. If the appellate court does its job, the RICO charges will be thrown out. And in doing so, the court will reaffirm a critical principle that the law must not be bent to fit a narrative. The law must be followed even when it is inconvenient, and especially when it is unpopular. Because in the end, justice must be blind and not blinded by assumptions, reputations, or flawed theories. If you want to be featured in our video releases, send us your clips by emailing them to hnnewsroom242@gmail.com or use Google Drive for larger files. Be sure to include your name and any details you'd like us to know. We can't wait to showcase your contributions. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.